"This is unacceptable, Arthur. Your leadership has been a catastrophic failure." Eleanor Vance's voice cut through the sterile boardroom air. Arthur Caldwell, visibly shaken, watched as a dismissal letter was slid across the polished mahogany table. His tenure at Nexus Solutions was over, effective immediately. What would happen if the most critical eyes in the company belonged to someone no one truly saw? It was mid-morning on the bustling operations floor of Nexus Solutions. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a familiar, industrious glow across rows of computer screens. Nia Jenkins moved with a quiet, focused energy, her simple black blazer indistinguishable from countless others. At 35, she possessed a meticulous eye, honed by years of sifting through corporate data. "The Q3 projection for regional logistics is off by 2.7%, she murmured to a junior analyst, pointing to a single cell in a sprawling spreadsheet. "Adjust for supplier delay variability in the algorithm, not just fixed lead times." The analyst nodded, impressed by her precision. Nia's calm efficiency was a constant, a quiet hum amidst the company's daily operations. Later, in the Nexus Solutions cafeteria, the scent of stale coffee mingled with the lively lunchtime chatter. Nia, nursing a lukewarm tea, subtly absorbed the ambient noise. "Another memo about optimizing workflow? We're drowning in redundant paperwork," grumbled one operations team member to another. "And don't get me started on the server downtime again." Nia's gaze remained fixed on her tea, but her mind whirred. She mentally cross-referenced the complaints against the internal reports she'd reviewed that morning. The whispers of waste weren't just office gossip. They were data points, clear indicators of systemic inefficiencies she'd identified months ago. Another quarter, another layer of accepted waste, asterisk, she thought, a quiet concern settling in her analytical mind. The corporate world was a game of chess, and Nia Jenkins was playing a long, quiet one. Late that evening, in her small, meticulously organized home office, she accessed a secure portal on her laptop. The glowing screen displayed the unmistakable logo of Parent Co. Internal Audit. Nia wasn't just an operations manager at Nexus Solutions. She was a highly specialized, covert auditor, sent by the parent company to identify the deep-seated inefficiencies and financial drain. She scrolled through complex charts, cross-referencing her daily observations with official company reports. "The mission isn't just about the numbers," asterisk, she mused, "it's about the truth behind them. And discretion is paramount until the right moment." Her long-term strategic assignment was nearing a critical phase. The next morning, an email rippled through Nexus Solutions, introducing Arthur Caldwell, our new head of operations optimization. Employees gathered in the main lobby, whispering about the change. "He's from that big consulting firm Apex Strategies," someone murmured, "supposedly a real visionary." Nia observed the buzz with a knowing, analytical gaze. A new executive meant disruption, a fresh set of eyes, or perhaps just another set of blinders. She knew the company's problems weren't a secret, but only one person truly understood their depth, and that person wasn't the one about to make a grand entrance. Anticipation, curiosity, and a faint apprehension hung in the air. Arthur Caldwell strode onto the Nexus Solutions auditorium stage, radiating a practiced charisma. He delivered a polished, jargon-filled speech, emphasizing, quote, synergy, disruptive innovation, and paradigm shifts with the confidence of a seasoned orator. His presentation slides were sleek, devoid of concrete plans, but rich in buzzwords. Nia sat in the third row, her expression unreadable. She noted his designer suit, his perfectly coiffed hair, and the way he held the audience's attention with empty promises. Asterisk all flash, no substance, asterisk her internal assessment concluded. He talked a big game, but the real experts, like Nia, were already seeing through the facade, recognizing the hollow core beneath the shiny veneer. Arthur Caldwell leaned back in his plush, ergonomic chair, the city skyline spread out like a conquered kingdom beneath the panoramic windows of his newly renovated office. The scent of fresh paint and expensive leather filled the air, a stark contrast to the sterile hum of the operations floor below. He took a sip of single-origin coffee, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips. This wasn't just an office. It was the launching pad for his legacy. The reports from his predecessor, a timid man obsessed with incremental gains, lay in a neat, unread stack, outdated, irrelevant. Arthur thought. They simply lacked my vision, my ability to see the bigger picture. His confidence, polished over years of corporate maneuvering, bordered on hubris. He was here to optimize, to innovate, to elevate. And he wouldn't let anyone stand in his way. The corporate conference room, usually a hub of collaborative energy, felt heavy with a palpable tension. Arthur, at the head of the polished oak table, dominated the space, his voice booming with corporate jargon. We need to synergize our core competencies and leverage our disruptive technologies to truly recalibrate our operational paradigm. He barely paused for breath, let alone input. Nia Jenkins, seated quietly among the operations team leads, listened intently, her brow furrowed. When he finally paused, Nia raised a hand, a precise data point ready on her tongue. Arthur, our Q3 efficiency report indicates a potential bottleneck in... Before she could finish, Arthur cut her off with a dismissive wave. Details, Nia, details. We're talking blue sky, thinking here, not getting bogged down in the minutiae. Save the spreadsheets for your desk. A collective sigh, almost imperceptible, rippled through the room. Late into the evening, long after the operations floor had emptied, Nia remained in her cubicle. The hum of her laptop and the soft click of her keyboard were the only sounds. Arthur's dismissiveness still stung, but it only fueled her resolve. She meticulously compiled a new efficiency proposal, one even more detailed and irrefutable than her previous attempts. Cost-saving projections, clear implementation steps, and quantifiable benefits filled page after page. Nia knew the data was sound. It was a roadmap to preventing significant losses. Surely, she thought, even Arthur Caldwell, with all his blue sky talk, cannot ignore concrete numbers. The truth, in this form, must speak for itself. She printed the report, its pages a testament to her dedication, and bound it neatly. A few days later, Nia found herself back in Arthur's opulent office, her meticulously prepared report clutched in her hand. She presented it calmly, detailing each section. Arthur, however, barely glanced at the glossy cover. He leaned back, a bored expression on his face. Nia, he said, a patronizing smile gracing his lips. I appreciate your enthusiasm for process, but sometimes, people like you overthink things. Too much. Process obsession. My vision is about the bigger picture, the grand narrative, not these microscopic details. He waved a dismissive hand, implying her hours of work were irrelevant. Nia's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. Arthur, these details represent a projected 15% reduction in operational waste and a 7% increase in output. They are the foundation of any grand narrative you wish to build. Arthur just chuckled, the sound hollow. As Nia left his office, Arthur leaned back again, a satisfied smirk returning. He patted the unread report on his desk. Another one handled. He thought. He congratulated himself on streamlining the meeting, on not getting dragged into the weeds of operations manager minutiae. It's about managing expectations, he rationalized, asserting authority. Can't have subordinates thinking they run the show. His thoughts, cloaked in corporate speak, revealed a deeper, unconscious bias. He saw Nia, a quiet black woman in operations, as a worker bee, not a strategic thinker. Her job is to execute my vision, not to challenge it with her spreadsheets. He dismissed her expertise not on merit, but on his perception of her place in his self-crafted hierarchy. Back in the sanctuary of her home office, late into the night, Nia logged into her secure auditor portal. The rejection from Arthur, while frustrating, had clarified her path. Direct appeals wouldn't work. His ego, his biases, were too deeply entrenched. This was no longer about convincing him. It was about gathering incontrovertible evidence. She began updating her findings, meticulously documenting Arthur's dismissals alongside her ignored proposals. Time's a long game, she mused. Time's a long, she mused. Dao, Jen, requires patience and precision. Her commitment to her mission, to the true well-being of Nexus Solutions, solidified. Arthur's arrogance was a vulnerability, and Nia, the unseen auditor, was now poised to exploit it, not with confrontation, but with irrefutable truth. Small cracks in the foundation are appearing, but only one person is tracking their growth. Over the next several weeks, the polished hum of Nexus Solutions began to falter, slowly but surely. In the supply chain department, orders were routinely delayed by a day or two, then 3. Customer service queues lengthened, the faint, tinny sound of hold music becoming a constant backdrop. Another system glitch. A junior analyst grumbled, rubbing his temples as his inbox overflowed. It never used to be this bad. Nia Jenkins moved through the bustling floors, a silent sentinel, her eyes missing nothing. She saw the overloaded inboxes, the stressed-out employees, the subtle yet undeniable signs of a machine grinding against itself. Each minor delay, every frustrated sigh, was a data point for Nia, meticulously logged, a direct consequence of the very inefficiencies she had flagged and Arthur had ignored. The company's once smooth rhythm was now a discordant buzz. The warnings grow louder, but the executive's ears are firmly shut. A month after her initial proposal, Nia found herself back in Arthur Caldwell's opulent office, a fresh report in hand. The data was stark. A clear, undeniable negative trend in operational efficiency and a steady rise in overhead. "Arthur," she began calmly, "my updated analysis shows a 3% dip in Q2 output, directly correlating with the unaddressed bottlenecks in our logistics pipeline. My initial proposal outlined how we could have mitigated this." Arthur, barely glancing at the charts, waved a dismissive hand. "Nia, he tutted, leaning back in his plush chair. "Always so focused on the negatives. We're in a period of dynamic transformation, not decline. You seem resistant to change, obsessed with process when I'm focused on the bigger picture." He rose, offering a patronizing pat on her shoulder. "Just keep those numbers looking pretty, all right? Leave the strategy to me." Nia's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. "The numbers too cease the strategy, Arthur." But he was already turning away, already dismissing her. The truth is starting to emerge, no matter how hard some try to hide it. A week later, the quarterly performance review meeting was a tense affair. The large projection screen displayed charts that, despite Arthur's best efforts, showed a slight but undeniable dip in key performance indicators across several departments. "As you can see," Arthur announced, gesturing wildly at a chart, "we've experienced a * minor recalibration NOGs due to unforeseen global supply chain fluctuations. Entirely external factors, of course, beyond our control." He spun a narrative of resilience and imminent recovery, his forced optimism ringing hollow. Other department heads exchanged uneasy glances, recognizing the familiar rhetoric. Nia, seated quietly at the back, observed the reports. Her own internal data models perfectly aligned with the downward trends, confirming that Arthur's external factors were, in reality, the very internal inefficiencies she had been warning him about. The numbers didn't lie, even if Arthur tried to make them dance. When things go wrong, a true leader takes responsibility, or blames everyone else. Back in his office, the veneer of Arthur's forced optimism shattered. He paced furiously, a crumpled printout of the quarterly report clutched in his hand. "Unacceptable!" he bellowed at his assistant, who sat frozen at her desk. "This is a direct reflection on *. My leadership. The team's performance is abysmal. They're clearly not working hard enough." He slammed his fist on the desk. "Get me a memo drafted immediately. Demand more effort, more accountability. Threaten disciplinary action if these dips aren't corrected by next quarter. It's their fault, not mine. I just need to remind them who's in charge." His internal monologue raced, a desperate scramble to protect his image, to deflect the inevitable blame. He would not fail. Not on his watch. Even in a hostile environment. True allies recognize real talent. Later that week, in the office kitchen, Nia was making her usual midday coffee when Mark, a senior manager from the IT department, joined her. "Rough quarter," Mark mumbled, pouring himself a cup. "Arthur's got everyone on edge." He lowered his voice. "Heard you tried to tell him about the database redundancy issues, Nia. Knew you were right, but he just didn't get it." Nia gave a non-committal hum. "Data speaks for itself eventually." Mark chuckled. A dry, tired sound. Not to Arthur. Remember that time he tried to optimize our server architecture? Almost crashed the whole network, thought he was a tech guru. Nia listened, her expression calm. These whispered grievances, these shared anecdotes of Arthur's incompetence, were invaluable. They reinforced her credibility, provided human context to her cold data, and further validated the detailed audit report she was painstakingly building. The quiet auditor sends a message that will shake the very foundations of the company. Late that night, in the quiet solitude of her home office, Nia finalized her interim audit report. Months of meticulous observation, ignored warnings, and mounting inefficiencies were distilled into a comprehensive document. She meticulously sanitized the report, removing any identifying markers that might point directly to her, maintaining her cover. This isn't just about Arthur, she narrated internally as she clicked through the secure portal. This is about the company. About ensuring the right information reaches the right people, even if it has to bypass layers of ego and prejudice. With a final, determined click, the report, a digital arrow aimed squarely at the heart of Nexus Solutions, growing problems and Arthur Caldwell's mismanagement, was sent through the secure parent company channel. A progress bar filled. Then a confirmation message appeared. Her mission was advancing. The stakes were higher than ever. The relentless, metallic ring of phones echoed through the Nexus Solutions customer support call center. A few weeks had passed since Arthur's dismissive meeting, and the subtle decay Nia had observed was no longer subtle. Screens flashed red with urgent tickets, and the air thrummed with frustrated voices. "Sir, I understand, but the system's been slow all week," one representative pleaded into her headset, her voice tight with stress. Another slammed his hand down, muttering, "Systemic issues, I tell you, systemic." Nia moved through the chaos, a quiet anchor in the storm. She watched, her analytical mind meticulously tallying the surge in critical complaints. Delayed orders, billing errors, unresponsive interfaces. Each frantic call was a direct echo of the inefficiencies she had warned Arthur about, a harsh symphony of ignored advice. The company's problems were spiraling, and the customers were feeling the pain. The growing crisis forced Arthur Caldwell's hand. He called an emergency meeting in the large conference room, attempting to project an image of decisive control. Arthur, pacing at the head of the table, pointed aggressively at a whiteboard listing a dozen superficial action items. "We'll implement a new customer feedback loop. We'll hold daily stand-ups to boost morale." His voice boomed, full of bluster and empty promises. Department heads exchanged confused glances, their silence a skeptical counterpoint to Arthur's forced optimism. Nia sat quietly among them, her expression unreadable. She knew these frantic, reactive measures were like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. They addressed symptoms, not the underlying operational rot she had meticulously documented. When the captain is lost, the ship is truly adrift. During a brief lull in Arthur's pronouncements, Nia saw a window. "Arthur," she began, her voice calm but clear, "perhaps instead of patching symptoms, we should review the structural inefficiencies that are causing them. My team has data linking these issues directly to—" Arthur cut her off with an impatient wave, his face already flushing. "Nia, we've been over this. Your theories are unconstructive. We don't need overly analytical details right now. We need bold action. My vision is about the big picture, not getting bogged down in the weeds." He reaffirmed his vision over her, details oblivious to the ripple of unease among the staff. The last chance for a wake-up call was ignored, sealing a fate. Miles away, in a high-rise executive office at the parent co headquarters, Eleanor Vance's expression was grim. She reviewed Nexus Solutions' latest performance metrics, a stark tableau of declining revenue and escalating customer churn. On a second monitor, she cross-referenced the official reports with Nia Jenkins, anonymized audit documents, the interim reports, the detailed proposals, the subtle warnings. A red flag icon glowed ominously on her dashboard. "The pattern is undeniable, isn't it?" Eleanor said to her senior analyst, her voice devoid of emotion. "Every decline Nia predicted, every inefficiency she highlighted, is playing out precisely as documented." Her internal monologue confirmed the worst. Arthur Caldwell was not only incompetent, but his arrogance had actively sabotaged the subsidiary, Immediate action was necessary. The higher-ups were watching, and they weren't happy with what they saw. Late that night, in the quiet solitude of her home office, Nia Jenkins received a cryptic, secure message on her auditor portal. It was brief, a single line of coded text, _ report received. Escalation initiated. _ A wave of relief washed over her, quickly followed by a surge of nervous anticipation. Months of quiet observation, ignored warnings, and meticulous documentation had led to this moment. The parent company had seen the truth. Nia knew what escalation meant. The intricate dance was nearing its climax. Her secret mission was nearing its conclusion, and the tension was palpable. She allowed herself a small, knowing smile in the glow of the screen. A few days later, Nexus Solutions hosted a corporate gala, an opulent affair designed to project an image of stability amidst the internal turmoil. Arthur Caldwell, impeccably dressed, stood on stage, a forced smile plastered across his face. He delivered a boastful speech about future growth and unprecedented success, his words ringing hollow against the backdrop of the company's actual, struggling state. Nia observed from the back, a champagne flute untouched in her hand, her expression unamused. Arthur's performance was a desperate act, a public facade of confidence, while the foundation beneath him crumbled. He toasted to a future he wouldn't be part of, utterly unaware that his downfall was just around the corner. The morning sun, usually a welcome beacon, felt like a spotlight on Arthur Caldwell. He adjusted the knot of his silk tie, the fabric cool against his nervous throat. In his plush office, overlooking the city, he reviewed his presentation one last time. Glossy slides, bullet points designed for impact, and carefully curated metrics that painted a picture of transformative growth, all ready for the board. He practiced a confident smile in the polished mahogany reflection. Synergistic efficiencies, he murmured, testing the phrase. Optimized resource allocation. He had the board in his pocket. Any lingering doubts about the company's recent dips were mere hiccups. He'd explain away with a flourish of corporate jargon and his undeniable charm. Today, Arthur would solidify his legacy. A day before the board meeting, an email landed in Nia Jenkins' inbox, its subject line stark, invitation to board review, Nexus Solutions operations. It was from Eleanor Vance. A subtle signal. Nia's phone buzzed almost immediately. "Nia, it's Arthur," his voice tight with surprise. "Just saw the invite. To the board meeting? What's that about?" Nia's expression remained calm, her voice measured. "I imagine they want an operations perspective, Arthur. You know, to support your vision." She offered a subtle, almost imperceptible emphasis on support. Arthur grunted. "Right. Well, just keep it brief. We don't want to get bogged down in the weeds." Nia simply replied, "Understood." A knowing glint in her eyes. The stage was set. The night before the meeting, Nia sat in her home office, the only light emanating from her laptop screen. Months of meticulous work culminated in the document before her. Nexus Solutions Operational Audit Final Report. Every ignored proposal, every dismissed warning, every data point correlating Arthur's vision with the company's decline was cross-referenced, meticulously documented. This wasn't just a report, it was a forensic analysis, an irrefutable narrative of mismanagement. Nia's fingers hovered over the keyboard, her heart beating with a quiet, determined rhythm. "This isn't about me, she thought. It's about the truth. It's about Nexus Solutions." The gravity and precision of her work were undeniable. The boardroom was a theater of corporate power. Arthur Caldwell stood at the head of the polished table, radiating an almost theatrical confidence. His presentation, a masterpiece of corporate euphemism, glossed over Nexus Solutions, dwindling metrics with impressive slides and buzzword-laden promises. "We're pivoting towards robust growth," he declared, gesturing expansively at a graph that vaguely trended upwards. "Embracing synergistic pathways for unparalleled market penetration." Nia sat quietly at the far end of the table, an operations manager among executives, her gaze analytical, betraying nothing. She observed the board members, their expressions mostly neutral, but a subtle shifting in their seats hinted at a deeper, unspoken skepticism. As Arthur continued his performance, a murmur rippled through the boardroom. A board member cleared his throat. Mr. Caldwell, the Q3 reports indicate a rather significant dip in customer retention. How does that align with your unparalleled market penetration? Arthur deflected with practiced ease, blaming unforeseen market volatilities. But the subtle glances exchanged between board members, the slight narrowing of Eleanor Vance's eyes, did not escape Nia. She noted the furrowed brows, the quiet whispers, the barely concealed impatience. They weren't buying it. The air thickened with unspoken doubt, and Nia felt a surge of anticipation. The board's patience was wearing thin. Arthur, oblivious, launched into another paragraph about leveraging strategic assets. But before he could finish, Eleanor Vance, the senior board member, raised a hand. Her movement was small, precise, yet it commanded absolute silence. Arthur's voice trailed off, his mouth slightly agape. "Thank you, Mr. Caldwell," Eleanor said, her voice calm but authoritative, cutting through the lingering corporate jargon. "But before we delve further into strategic asset leveraging, I believe we require a bit more clarity on the actual operational ground truth." Arthur blinked, visibly flustered, his practiced composure cracking under the unexpected interruption. The spotlight in the room shifted, away from him, towards the quiet figure at the table's end. Eleanor Vance held the silence like a conductor holding a final note, her gaze unwavering as Arthur Caldwell sputtered for a coherent thought. The tension in the opulent boardroom was a living, breathing thing, pressing down on every polished surface, every expensive suit. Then, with a slow, deliberate turn, Eleanor's eyes found Nia, who sat quietly, her hands folded calmly in her lap. "Ms. Jenkins," Eleanor's voice cut through the stillness, cool and precise. "Perhaps you'd care to share your perspective on these results?" Arthur's head whipped towards Nia, his mouth agape. "Her? Ms. Jenkins?" "With all due respect, Eleanor, she's an operations manager. We're discussing high-level strategy here." Nia met his incredulous stare with a steady, unblinking gaze. Without a word, she rose from her seat. Her movements were fluid, unhurried, as if she were merely walking to the coffee machine, not to the precipice of a corporate earthquake. She approached the large presentation screen, a quiet architect ready to unveil her meticulously crafted blueprint. The room held its breath. With a soft click, Nia projected her own presentation onto the screen, replacing Arthur's glossy, jargon-filled slides with stark, undeniable data. Charts bloomed in shades of red and orange, illustrating plummeting efficiency metrics, spiraling operational costs, and a clear, damning correlation between Arthur's directives and Nexus Solutions' decline. "My team submitted these projections, Mr. Caldwell, on your third day," Nia stated, her voice calm, devoid of any triumph or emotion, merely stating fact. A graph appeared, showing Nia's initial cost-saving proposals, ignored, directly overlaid with the subsequent financial losses. "This redundancy in our logistics chain, for which I proposed a solution 2 months ago, has now cost the company $1.2 million in lost revenue." Her pointer, a tiny red dot, moved across the screen with surgical precision, highlighting every ignored warning, every dismissed piece of expertise. The board members leaned forward, their expressions shifting from skepticism to grim realization, their eyes fixed on the irrefutable evidence. Arthur's face, once flushed with indignation, now began to drain of color, a cold panic taking root. As Nia meticulously detailed another operational failure, directly linked to one of Arthur's, quote, synergy initiatives, Arthur could take no more. He slammed his hands on the table, pushing his chair back with a screech. "This is outrageous. She's cherry-picking data. These are just theories from a low-level manager. She doesn't understand the big picture." His voice, once so confident, was now laced with a desperate, frantic edge. "Mr. Caldwell," Eleanor Vance interjected, her voice cutting like a whip, sharp and authoritative, "I believe Ms. Jenkins is quite capable of understanding the entire time picture. And unlike your presentation, hers appears to be grounded in facts, not rhetoric." Arthur faltered, his mouth opening and closing uselessly. The sheer force of Eleanor's dismissal, delivered with such cold finality, deflated him. He slumped back into his chair, defeated, humiliated, his gaze fixed on Nia as she continued her presentation, unfazed by his outburst, a quiet storm of competence. Nia clicked to the final slide, a summary of her proposed recovery plan, a beacon of clarity amidst the chaos Arthur had sown. She paused, letting the weight of her findings settle in the silent, stunned room. Eleanor Vance then rose, her presence commanding attention, her gaze sweeping across each board member before finally settling on a pale, trembling Arthur. "Gentlemen, Mr. Caldwell," Eleanor began, her voice measured but imbued with an unmistakable steel. "It has become clear that Nexus Solutions requires a leader who truly understands and values operational efficiency. Someone who listens to expertise, not dismisses it based on superficial assumptions." She turned to Nia, a subtle, almost imperceptible nod passing between them. "Ms. Jenkins isn't just our operations manager. She's been our lead internal auditor for the past 6 months, reporting directly to Parent Co." The words hung in the air, a hammer blow. Arthur's eyes widened, his jaw slack, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally, a dawning horror that twisted his features into a mask of pure terror. The quiet manager was a secret agent all along, and the arrogant executive had just walked into her trap. That's impossible," Arthur stammered, scrambling to his feet, his voice high-pitched and broken. She's an operations manager. She was just submitting reports. I didn't know who she was." He clutched the edge of the polished table, sweat beading on his brow. Eleanor Vance fixed him with an unyielding stare. "That, Mr. Caldwell, is precisely the problem. You were supposed to listen to expertise, regardless of title or appearance. You were supposed to prioritize the health of this company over your own ego." Her voice hardened, leaving no room for argument. "Due to gross negligence, consistent mismanagement, and a blatant disregard for critical data, your employment with Nexus Solutions is terminated, effective immediately." The words, though expected, still landed with crushing finality. Arthur swayed, his world crumbling around him. The board members watched in stone-faced silence. A collective judgment passed. As security was discreetly called to escort Arthur Caldwell from the premises, Nia Jenkins calmly stepped forward. The room, still reeling from the dramatic reveal, now turned its full attention to her. "With the board's permission," Nia began, her voice steady and composed, commanding the space with quiet authority, "I recommend we immediately implement a 3-phase operational recovery plan. Phase 1 involves re-establishing the critical feedback loops Mr. Caldwell dismantled, starting with direct communication channels for all operational leads." Eleanor Vance nodded, a subtle but firm gesture of approval. "Ms. Jenkins, the board has full confidence in your leadership. We ask that you not only implement these proposals, but lead the entire operational restructuring." Nia met her gaze, a flicker of quiet satisfaction in her eyes. The expert had taken her rightful place, ready to rebuild what arrogance had broken. The room, once a battleground of ego and intellect, was now a space of purpose and clear direction. The next morning, the polished chrome and glass of Nexus Solutions felt colder, sharper. A palpable hum of whispers replaced the usual corporate drone. Arthur Caldwell, a ghost of his former bluster, packed his opulent office. Each item, a framed certificate, a heavy paperweight, a half-empty mug, was placed into a box with a clumsy, almost pathetic air. Employees, usually rushing past with averted gazes, now slowed, pretending to organize files or check their phones, but their eyes flickered, drawn by the spectacle. The news of Nia Jenkins, the quiet operations manager, being a secret internal auditor sent by Parent Co., and Arthur's immediate dismissal for gross negligence, had ripped through the company intranet like wildfire. His visionary proclamations now echoed as hollow, his grandstanding as pathetic. Arthur felt the weight of every silent stare, every barely suppressed smirk. His empire, built on bluster and dismissed expertise, had crumbled. A week later, the office once occupied by Arthur Caldwell had been meticulously cleared, stripped of its former occupants' self-important decor. Now a new nameplate, sleek and understated, graced the large executive desk. Nia Jenkins, head of operations strategy. Eleanor Vance, her posture as sharp and precise as her intellect, formally installed Nia. "Nia," Eleanor stated, her voice resonating with quiet authority, Your work has not only exposed critical vulnerabilities, but has also laid the foundation for a stronger, more efficient Nexus Solutions. Parent Co. has full confidence in your leadership to implement these much-needed reforms." Nia, now seated at the expansive desk, nodded, her gaze sweeping over the city skyline beyond the panoramic window. Her internal monologue was a quiet symphony of purpose. This isn't about power, she thought. It's about responsibility. About rebuilding with integrity. She outlined her immediate plans for reform, her voice calm but imbued with the unwavering confidence of a true architect. The initial weeks of Nia's new leadership were a masterclass in patient, data-driven reform. She didn't arrive with a wrecking ball. She came with blueprints and a listening ear. Nia held town hall meetings, not to dictate, but to explain. "We're not just changing processes," she would tell the skeptical faces in the audience. "We're optimizing for sustainability and impact. Every proposed change is backed by the data you yourselves helped collect, designed to alleviate the very pain points you've reported." There was initial resistance, the inertia of long-held habits, and the cynicism born from years of ignored feedback. But Nia met it with calm logic, presenting clear, verifiable projections of how her strategies would cut waste, boost efficiency, and, crucially, empower the very staff who felt disenfranchised. Slowly, surely, the skepticism gave way to understanding, then to active participation. The hum of efficiency, once a distant memory, began to resonate anew. 3 months later, Nexus Solutions was a company transformed. The frantic chaos that had defined Arthur's reign was replaced by a vibrant, focused energy. Green charts dominated the performance review dashboards, showcasing significant improvements in efficiency, client satisfaction, and, most importantly, the bottom line. The once stressed faces of operations staff were now visibly brighter, their movements more purposeful. A renewed sense of ownership permeated the open plan office, a direct result of Nia's inclusive approach. Nia walked the floors, observing the smooth flow of work, the collaborative energy, the absence of the whispers of waste that had once plagued the cafeteria. A quiet satisfaction settled within her. The data was irrefutable, but the true measure of her success lay in the revitalized spirit of the people and the thriving ecosystem she had helped restore. "This is what happens," she reflected, "when expertise is heard and respect is the foundation." Nia's office, Arthur's old domain, became a beacon. Colleagues who had once politely nodded or cautiously offered whispered grievances now sought her out, not just for directives, but for genuine counsel. The senior manager, who had once shared a commiserating coffee with Nia, approached her desk, a look of profound admiration on his face. "Nia," he began, "I just wanted to say, thank you. You saw what was happening, and you had the courage and the smarts to do something about it. We all learned a lot." Nia offered a calm, confident smile. She acknowledged the shift in perception, the newfound deference, but her grounded nature remained untouched. Her focus had always been on the work, on the data, on the integrity of the operation. Respect, she knew, wasn't given by title alone. It was earned, painstakingly, through consistent competence and unwavering commitment to truth. Nia Jenkins stood at the expansive window of her new office, a space once occupied by Arthur Caldwell. The city skyline stretched before her, a mosaic of steel and glass gleaming under the afternoon sun. It was a view of triumph, yes, but also of profound reflection. Her journey hadn't just been about saving a company from inefficiency. It had been a quiet battle against the deeply ingrained biases that often blind people to true merit. She thought of Arthur, so convinced of his own brilliance, yet so utterly incapable of seeing value beyond his narrow preconceptions. He had judged her by her role, her demeanor, perhaps even by the color of her skin, failing to recognize the quiet architect beneath the operations manager title. Nia knew that real strength wasn't about shouting the loudest or occupying the biggest office, but about the unwavering conviction in one's truth, and the quiet perseverance to see it through. Her success wasn't just a win for Nexus Solutions. It was a testament to the power of overlooked expertise, a quiet revolution against the tyranny of assumption. Nia's story, the Arthur incident, quickly became a corporate legend within Nexus Solutions and beyond. You'd hear it whispered at the water cooler, recounted with hushed awe in the elevators, and even alluded to in industry conferences. "Remember Arthur Caldwell?" someone would ask, a knowing smile playing on their lips. "The one who ignored Nia Jenkins?" Her name became synonymous with a new company value: listen to your people. Posters appeared in break rooms, not with corporate buzzwords, but with simple phrases like, "Value all voices," and "Expertise is everywhere." The incident had served as a powerful, albeit painful, teaching moment. It wasn't just about avoiding another Arthur. It was about fostering an environment where ideas were judged on their merit, not on the title or appearance of the person who presented them. The company had learned the hard way that sometimes the most unassuming person in the room holds the keys to its very future. What can we truly learn from Nia's incredible journey? In a world where first impressions are often shallow and judgments are made too quickly, Nia's story serves as a powerful reminder. It's a testament to the fact that expertise and wisdom can come from the most unexpected places, often disguised by a job title or an appearance that doesn't fit someone's preconceived notions. Richard Ashford, like Arthur Caldwell, failed to look beyond the surface, dismissing invaluable insights because he believed he knew better, because he held power. Every single person deserves respect and consideration, not because of their title or position, but because of their inherent humanity and the potential wisdom they carry. Sometimes, the person you're dismissing, the voice you're ignoring, might just be the most qualified, the most insightful, the most critical person in the entire room. The next time someone tries to put you in a box based on how you look or what they think they know about you, remember Nia Jenkins. Remember her quiet strength, her unwavering commitment to her data, and her ultimate triumph. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for what's right. And never, ever let anyone's prejudices prevent you from doing your job, from speaking your truth, or from sharing your expertise. Because you never know who you're really talking to. And more importantly, everyone deserves to be heard, regardless of who they are. If you enjoyed this story of justice served and assumptions shattered, make sure to subscribe for more incredible true stories. And let us know in the comments, have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked or what you were wearing? Share your story below.